The night my father introduced me as the help, I almost thanked him. Not because it was funny, not because it didn't hurt, but because if he hadn't said it, none of them would have found out who I really was, and I would have kept playing small. It was Christmas Eve in Charleston. 12 people at the table. Crystal glasses. My mother's expensive red table, runner that only came out when someone important was watching. And someone important was watching. My father had invited a real estate investor from Atlanta. Big money, big ego, the kind of man my father practiced smiling for in the mirror. I was in the kitchen when it started. I always was. My older brother Daniel was in the dining room talking about his promotion at a finance firm in Charlotte. My mother was floating around refilling wine glasses, like she was hosting a gala instead of dinner. And me? I was pulling the prime rib out of the oven. Because apparently, when you don't have a real career, you get assigned the apron. I walked into the dining room carrying the tray, and my father stood up, glass raised. "Before we eat," he said, "I just want to say how proud I am of my son. Daniel closed 7 figures in acquisitions this year." Applause. Daniel gave that modest little shrug like he hadn't rehearsed it. Then my father's eyes slid toward me. "And this is Ava," he said casually. "She's helping out this year." A few people smiled politely. He wasn't done. "She's staying with us while she figures things out." We joke that she's our live-in event coordinator. A laugh from someone at the far end. I felt my stomach drop. Helping out. Leaving. Event coordinator. Translation, unemployed daughter who moved back home. The investor, Mr. Whitaker, looked at me with that tight, professional smile. "Oh," he said. "So you're in hospitality?" My father answered for me. "Something like that." I set the tray down. I could have corrected him. I could have said it. But I didn't. Because I wanted to see how far he'd go. Because sometimes when people underestimate you, it tells you exactly who they are. We sat down. Dinner started. Daniel talked markets. My father talked property. Mr. Whitaker talked expansion. Nobody asked me a single question. Until my niece, Daniel's 8-year-old daughter, leaned toward me and whispered, "Aunt Ava, why does Grandpa say you don't have a job?" "Mommy said you run something." The fork in my hand froze. Run something. My sister-in-law quickly shushed her. But Mr. Whitaker heard. He looked at me again. Slower this time. "What do you run?" he asked. And for the first time that night, someone waited for me to answer. My father cleared his throat. "Ava's always had creative hobbies. 6 years ago, when I left Charleston, I had $800 in my checking account and a camera I bought on a credit card. I moved to Nashville and started filming weddings. Not glamorous ones, backyard ones, church basement ones, Tuesday afternoon courthouse ones. I edited until 3 a.m. I learned contracts the hard way. I got underpaid, overworked, and I built something. But my parents never visited, never asked. They just told people I was trying different things. So I smiled at Mr. Whitaker. "I run a production company," I said calmly. "We specialize in luxury event media." My father shifted in his chair. "Oh, it's small," he added quickly. I didn't look at him. "We did $1.8 million in gross revenue last year," I continued. Silence. Daniel stopped chewing. My mother blinked like she misheard. Mr. Whitaker's eyebrows lifted just slightly. "Company name?" he asked. "Velour House Media." That name landed? Because recognition flickered across his face. "I know that brand," he said slowly. "You handled the Callaway estate launch in Franklin." "Yes, sir." Now everyone was looking at him. Not me. Him. "You're telling me," he continued carefully, "that you're the founder?" Founder. Not helper. Not hobbyist. Founder. Yes. My father laughed too loud. "Well, that's impressive," he said quickly. "Didn't realize it was that serious." Didn't realize. That part was true. He never asked. Mr. Whitaker leaned back in his chair, studying me. "We've been looking for a media partner. For our South Carolina developments," he said. "Your team's cinematic style is recognizable." My brother looked confused. "You film weddings," Daniel said. I met his eyes. "We don't film weddings anymore." The air had shifted. Completely. My mother's fork clinked against her plate. My father tried to pivot. "So anyway," he said, forcing a smile, "real estate is the backbone of wealth." But Mr. Whitaker interrupted him. "How many employees?" he asked me. 14 full-time. 6 contractors. And you're based in Nashville? Yes. And you're staying here because... That question lingered. Because what was my father going to say? That I failed? That I ran out of money? That I couldn't make it? I took a slow sip of water. I'm here because I closed on a downtown Charleston office last week, I said evenly. We're expanding. My father's head turned so fast I thought he might strain something. You bought property here? He asked. Yes. When were you going to tell us? I smiled gently. I wasn't sure you were interested. That hit harder than yelling would have. Mr. Whitaker chuckled under his breath. Well, he said, adjusting his cufflinks, I'd like to schedule a meeting after the holidays. And just like that, the conversation was no longer orbiting my father. It was orbiting me. The rest of dinner felt different. Not celebratory, not warm, strategic. My father kept trying to regain control, changing subjects, redirecting praise toward Daniel. But the energy had shifted permanently, because once people see you clearly, they can't unsee it. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the supporting character at my own family table. But here's the part no one saw coming. It wasn't what Mr. Whitaker said that changed everything. It was what my father did after everyone left. And that conversation, that's when the real story began. If you want, I'll continue with part 2, where the private confrontation happens. The last car pulled out of the driveway at 10:47 p.m. I know the time because I was still standing at the dining room window when the taillights disappeared. The house was quiet in that heavy after-party way. Half-empty wine glasses, crumbs on the tablecloth, the smell of roasted garlic still hanging in the air. My mother started clearing plates without looking at me. Daniel avoided eye contact and disappeared upstairs with his wife. And my father stood in the center of the room, like a man who had just lost something he didn't realize he was gambling. Ava, he said finally. Not sweetheart. Not kiddo. Just my name. Study now. Same tone he used when I was 16 and missed curfew. I followed him. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. The study smelled like leather and old paper. His degrees lined the wall. Real estate awards in polished frames. Photos of ribbon cuttings. There were no photos of me in that room. He closed the door. What was that? He asked. I leaned against the bookshelf, calm, steady. Dinner? Don't play smart, he snapped. Why would you blindside me like that? Blindside. Interesting word choice. I answered a question, I said. You introduced me. His jaw tightened. You embarrassed me. That one almost made me laugh. By succeeding? That's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? Silence. He walked behind his desk like he needed the furniture between us. You made it look like I didn't know my own daughter. I held his gaze. You don't. That landed. Harder than anything I said at the table. He exhaled sharply. You never told us it was that big. I tried, I said quietly. You just didn't listen. Flashback hit me without warning. 6 years ago. Same house. Same study. I'm moving to Nashville, I'd said, holding my camera like it was armor. For what? He'd asked. To build something. With what money? I'll figure it out. He'd leaned back in this exact chair and said, when you're done playing entrepreneur, the real world will still be here. I wasn't done playing. And the real world? I built my own. Back in the present, he rubbed his temple. You should have said something before tonight. Would it have changed anything? I asked. He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. No. You let that man think we didn't support you? I straightened. You didn't. The air shifted again. This wasn't about business anymore. This was about narrative control. My entire life, he'd controlled the story. Daniel, the golden child, finance, predictable, impressive in ways he understood. Me, creative, risky, unstable. Except now, I wasn't unstable. I was leverage. You think this is a win? He asked quietly. I don't think it's a competition. For you, maybe. There it was. He saw it as a scoreboard. Always had. I didn't do this to make you look small, I said. You did that yourself. That one hurt him. I saw it. He stepped closer. You don't understand how this works, he said. Reputation is currency. People invest in stability. Exactly, I replied. That's why he wants to meet. Silence stretched between us. Then he asked the question that actually mattered. Why didn't you tell us about the office? I could have been petty. I could have said, because you never cared. But I didn't. Because every time I shared something, I said slowly, You minimized it. So I stopped offering. He sat down. For the first time that night, he looked older. Why Charleston? He asked. This time there wasn't accusation in his voice, just curiosity. Because this city raised me, I said, and I wanted to build something here on my own terms. He studied me. You're serious about expanding? Yes. And Whitaker? I'll take the meeting. He nodded slowly. Then after a long pause, I could introduce you to 2 developers on the peninsula, he said carefully. Ah, there it was. The pivot, partnership, access, influence. The same man who introduced me as help now wanted proximity to my credibility. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I asked, why? His eyes flicked up. Because you're my daughter. I held his gaze. Tonight you said I was helping out. He winced. Subtle, but real. That was a mistake. Was it? Or was it habit? Words matter, I said quietly. Especially when they're public. He nodded once. You're right. That might have been the first time in my life he'd said that to me. Down the hall, I heard my mother laughing softly at something on TV. Normalcy creeping back in. But nothing was normal anymore. You don't need my introductions, he said finally. Do you? No. Honest. But I'll take them, I added. If they're offered as collaboration, not correction. He studied that. Then he stood. You built this without us. Yes. And you're not asking for anything. No. He walked toward the door, then stopped. I'm proud of you. The words felt unfamiliar in the room. Not performative. Not toasted over wine. Just quiet. I searched his face to see if it was strategy. For once, it wasn't. I didn't need you to be impressed, I said. I needed you to see me. He swallowed. I see you. That didn't fix 6 years. It didn't rewrite childhood. But it shifted something. Not power. Perspective. When I walked out of the study, Daniel was waiting in the hallway. You really did 1.8 million, he asked. Yes. He let out a low whistle. Why didn't you tell me? I did, I said. You just thought I meant YouTube. He laughed awkwardly. Guess I underestimated you. Most people did. He shoved his hands in his pockets. So, downtown office? Keys next month? He nodded slowly. That's big. Yeah. He hesitated. If you ever need financial structuring help? I smiled. I have a CFO. His eyebrows shot up. Of course I did. For the first time in our lives, we were standing on equal ground. Not competing. Just aware. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling. 6 years ago, I left this house feeling small. Tonight, I slept in it differently. Not as someone who failed and came back, but as someone who left, built, and returned by choice. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. Email. Subject line. Charleston Development Proposal. Whitaker Group. Attached preliminary scope request. He wasn't wasting time. Neither was I. Downstairs, my father was already at the kitchen island when I walked in. Coffee poured. 2 mugs. He slid one toward me. I called those developers, he said. They're open to meeting. I nodded. Thank you. No tension. No performance. Just acknowledgement. As I opened my laptop, my niece ran into the kitchen. And Ava, she said. Mom said you're a boss. I laughed. Something like that. She grinned. Can I work for you when I'm big? I crouched to her level. You can build your own. She thought about that. Then nodded seriously. Deal made. My father watched that exchange quietly. And maybe, just maybe, he understood something new. Legacy isn't about controlling the table. It's about who feels empowered to leave it. By noon, I had a call scheduled with Whitaker's team. By evening, I was touring my new office space downtown. Exposed brick. Tall windows, potential. I stood in the center of the empty room and imagined cameras, editors, strategy boards. This wasn't revenge. It was expansion. And here's the truth no one talks about. The real win wasn't proving them wrong. It was realizing I never needed their validation to be right. That Christmas Eve, my father introduced me as the help. By New Year's, Charleston would know me as the founder. And this time, no one would need to correct the story. Because I was finally the one telling it. If this story hit home, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More powerful stories about self-worth, success, and silent comebacks coming every week. Don't just watch the rise. Be part of it. Subscribe now.